Good morning, everyone. Hola, SAP developers. Um, First of all, thank you very much for joining this live stream. And Yeah, so today we will be discussing how we can use SQL to query your SAP BTP account. So I have a view on the chat, so please feel free to send your messages over the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it while I show you what I want to share with you guys today. Um, Hola, Santiago. Hola, Gurav. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to start in maybe a couple of seconds. Hola, DJ Adams. Apologies that I didn't say hi to you. Yeah, I'm very excited to share this with you guys. It's a little project that I've been working on lately, and yeah, it's quite cool, I think. So I think we should probably get started then. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, today we're going to discuss a bit about how you can use your SQL, basically querying skills, in order to interact with the global account data that's available of SAP BTP. I think that it would be best if I basically just show you exactly what's going to happen. Okay, so what is this talk about? Okay, so let me go to PG admin here, and I'm just going to start querying this. I'll get into the details as we progress in this session, but just to give you an idea, this is what I'm able to do. So, for example, here I am going to query my sub accounts that are connected to a BTP account. So I'm just going to execute this. And you can see here how it's basically retrieving me all the data, all the different sub accounts that are part of a global account. Okay. Now this is interacting with a productive account. And you can basically do the same thing, for example, with a trial account. So in this case, I've connected multiple accounts, and you can see here that as the schema, I'm specifying BTP trial. So you can see that I am interacting with two accounts in this queries, for example. Also, one of the things that I like very much is that in the end you have a lot of power within SQL here. So you notice here that in this account I have custom properties, and I'm able to access down to this level, for example, location, Virginia. So let's say that, this is actually, yeah, I'm able to query down to this level. So in my sub accounts here, you can see here that I have something that has this particular key and value. So for example, I can go ahead and just query my sub accounts by going down to down level. So let's just do that. So that here, for example, let's say viewer, and that's TechEd 2023, and you can see, and I'm just going to query this. So run this. Yeah, and you can see how I'm able to use that additional data that my sub account has in order to retrieve the sub accounts, which is pretty cool, right? So yeah, in essence, we're using SQL to query the account, the data that's part of our BTP account. Okay, cool. So that's what this presentation is going to be about. So now we're going to dive into the different methods on interacting with BTP account data. And there are many ways of interacting with this data, right? So one of the ways is what I just showed you, which is basically using a little plugin for a tool that's called Steampipe. But there are also other ways. So for example, we have the APIs that are, for example, the core services for SAP BTP APIs. We are also able to use the BTP CLI, which is a very popular tool in order to interact with our BTP accounts, and the Steampipe plugin that I just showed you. So let's start with what the core services for SAP BTP accounts is. So you can find these APIs, for example, in the in in the SAP Business Accelerator Hub. So in this case, what I show you is that I was interacting with the account services. So let me just go to the website itself, and you can see here, for example, that we have the account services, we have entitlement services, and we have other APIs that are part of the core services for SAP BTP. But at the moment, we're just going to focus on account services and entitlement services. If you've not played around with these APIs before, you'll see that you're able to access, for example, data for your sub accounts. We're also able to access global account data. We're able to access directory information, and you can see that I'm able to retrieve, for example, a particular directory and all its sub accounts, for example. I can expand, for example, what is it that I want to get there, and this is what we have available in this API, right? So I'll show you how I'm interacting with this data via the APIs, and then go to the BTP CLI, for example, and show you how you interact with that there. And also, in the end, how we're doing that via the plugin itself. Okay, so let's just, I think it would be just best if we interact with this. One thing that I want to mention is that in the background, you'll see there has to be something, authentication methods. So here it tells us that in order to interact with this API, you end up using OAuth 2.0. So just be sure that whatever I'm showing you today, it's under the hood using OAuth 2.0. So even those queries that I was making from pgadmin, which is that it's a tool to query a Postgres database, it's actually using OAuth 2 in the background in order to be able to securely communicate with the APIs. Okay, so I'm not going to show you exactly how you do the OAuth 2 authentication, but there's plenty of videos out. Even, for example, DJ, who's on the chat, has done extensive content related to OAuth 2, so check it out there with OData APIs as well. In this case, all the APIs that we're using are actually RESTful APIs, just REST APIs. So let me show you a bit of the APIs themselves. So let's explore these APIs first. Okay. Yes, it's also possible using SDK as well. That's good. So let's start with a global account. So in this case, as you can see here, I'm using Bruno. Bruno is just a REST client, similar to a Postman, but without a bit of the tracking that's going on around in Postman. So this is just an open source REST client I've been using lately, and it's quite good. I'm no longer using Postman that much. And one of the good things is that you're actually able to import some of your Postman data here. So this could be an alternative that you can check out if, for example, if you need to end up migrating from something like Postman. But well, that's a topic for another day. So let's go ahead and just query our global account. In this case, I already set up an environment, and you can see that here I already set up an access token and all that, so I don't have to worry about that. But here, I'm just interacting with this, right? So as you can see here, I end up querying my global account, expanding, getting all the information that's available for it. Then you can see here, for example, that all the information that I show you, for example, in that SQL query is basically available here. Now, one thing to notice is that in the end, we are interacting with an API, so we are limited to the sort of filtering capabilities that an API ends up giving me. So for example, I'm not able to, let's say, go down to the level, just bring me the children that were created after a particular date, for example. That's something that will require some further processing, right? So you will need to build something like an integration pipeline if you want to do that further processing with the API. And obviously, like, we're limited to the sort of what the API lets us do, right? So for example, here, let's check out sub accounts. I'm just going to get all sub accounts, right? In this case, for example, get sub accounts. Yeah, you can see here that I'm able to specify if I want to get just the sub accounts for a directory GUI. So that's good. Like if I just retrieve this, then I'm just going to get the sub accounts that are part of a particular directory. In this case, I already specified the directory GUI, but that's all the filtering that I'm able to do. But for example, like if I want to get all the sub accounts that start with a particular name or that include something within the name, I'm not able to do that, right? So this just to keep in mind that in the end, whenever we are interacting with APIs, we're limited to what the APIs allow us to do, obviously. And in this case, it would be, for example, something like, well, I'm just able to query by directory GUI, right? That being said, APIs are quite powerful, so you'll be able to do a lot of things with APIs. So in this case, we are just focusing on selecting data or getting the data, but also like you can see it here, right? Like we're able to create a directory, we're able to delete our directory, we're able to even update our directory. So it's quite powerful. Like don't get me wrong, the APIs are quite powerful. So, but in terms of querying data, so just like selecting data, then you're limited to what the API lets you do. Okay, so these are sub accounts, directory, basically what I was showing you before. Unfortunately, this is already cached here, but yeah, I'm just going to retrieve this, and you can see that I'm just retrieving all the data for this particular directory grid here. Everything in JSON structure that we all love, and also like in the entitlement services, right? So for example, entitlement services gives me some information, like in this case, what are the allow data centers in my sub account. So for example, here I'm going to retrieve this, and you can see that there are many sub accounts. But again, here, like maybe I'm someone who only has a presence in the US, and I'm only interested in the regions that are available in the US. Like at least here, I'm not able to do any filtering via this API. Something that we'll be able to do, for example, via queries. Also in this API, it actually lets me to query by a particular region. So yeah, this is quite cool. In this case, we have this included as satellite data centers, and we're also able to include that in our queries. Yeah, in assignments, assignments is good because we're able to get all the entitlements, for example, that are available for a global account or a sub account. Okay, so you can see it here, and yeah, I can just query this. It does take some time, but you can see basically all the services that my global account is entitled to. Okay, in this case, I actually have an assigned service name here, but we can remove that, and it will bring us everything. Now this can be quite powerful if you end up imagine this, if you end up joining this data with some of the data from sub accounts, for example. This is quite powerful, and we will check out how you could end up doing that with SQL. Yeah, or even something as simple as all these services have a business category ID, and in this case, data analytics. What if I'm only interested in getting everything for data analytics? Like at least the API is not able to do that for me, but you can see that we have quite a few services here that belong to data and analytics, right? So with the power of SQL, we'll be able to filter down to that level, for example. So those are the APIs in essence. Yeah, so this is how we interact with these APIs, everything in JSON format, obviously. So something that we are very used to. Now, another way of interacting with the APIs would be via the BTP CLI. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with the BTP CLI, in essence, you end up installing a client within your computer, and that client ends up communicating with what's called the CLI server, right? So the command line interface server, and then that command line interface server basically interacts with the APIs that are part of the platform service. So in this case, what ends up happening is that this CLI server is the one that ends up interacting with the core services for SAP BTP APIs. So for example, the account services. Whenever we are retrieving data via the BTP CLI, like under the hood is actually communicating with that account services API, right? Or with that entitlement services API. Obviously, as I mentioned before, everything authenticated and all that. So in this case, it's using the authentication server, the part of your account. So everything is secure, right? For those of you that are not familiar with the BTP CLI, you can find all the documentation in help.sap.com. You can download the CLI from the SAP development tools. So here you can see that BTP CLI is here under the cloud. Now, obviously, there's nothing like hands-on experience. So I would highly recommend you to, if you want to get some hands-on experience, there is this content that was created by my friend and colleague DJ Adams, which is the hands-on with BTP CLI and APIs. And it's a code gem, and you can do it on your own spare time, and it will give you an idea, for example, of interacting with your account via the BTP CLI. So I'll show you briefly how you interact with the BTP CLI, but in essence, it would be best if you, for example, go through something like the CodeGem content and check it out there. So now BTP CLI, right? So I already did my BTP login, for example, using single sign-on. That's the easiest way to sign up, in my opinion. But then let's start querying data. So for example, in this case, I'm just going to query my global account. Okay, so global account there. I'm going to specify show hierarchy. And as you can see, it's retrieving me all the data. So in this case, I logged into my productive account, and you can see how it actually is quite nice. It gives me this hierarchy, for example, that you can see, for example, even that in the UI. So if I actually go to the UI, you will be able to see it, that same structure. You'll be able to see it there. So this is taking some time to open. Bear with me a second. But yeah, so this structure is basically what you would end up getting in the UI. It's still loading here, so it's just taking some time. I should have opened it before so we don't waste time on this. But okay. So now this is good. It is human readable. So that is fine, right? But then what if I want to do something with it programmatically? Like ideally, I would get this same data in some more similar to the JSON format that I was getting from the APIs, right? And I'm able to do that as well. So for example, in here, in my BTP get, I'm able to specify I want the format to be JSON. And you can see that it actually retrieves me the data in JSON format, which is quite good because then I can end up developing scripts and using this as, for example, as an input to a tool like JQ, and then end up processing more data, and I can even end up using other tools to apply some filtering, right? And the same thing applies, for example, for other methods. So let's say that I want to get all my sub accounts. As mentioned, this is human readable and that's fine, but programmatically, I might want it in JSON format, right? So format JSON. And there you go. I basically get all my sub account information in JSON format. And this is basically the same that I was, let's see. So this will be the same that I was getting when I was interacting with my sub accounts here. So in Postman, sorry, not in Postman, in Bruno, when I was retrieving all my sub accounts, that's basically what I was getting, right? So that you can see that the format is pretty much the same as what I was getting in Bruno. So you can see that this, in the end, it ends up interacting with the same sort of data, right? It's interacting with the same API in the background. Cool. So back to my CLI, I have format JSON. Now, similar to APIs, let's say here account, sub account, sub account. You'll see that I'm basically trying to see what else can I do here. How can I filter this? You see, so for example, in this case, this particular utility allows me to filter by labels. Okay, so that same filter that I was doing in SQL, I'll be able to use label filters. But that's all I'm able to do. And this, in the end, it's also limited to with what the APIs allow me to do. That being said, the BTP CLI is very powerful, so you are also able to create objects, which is something that you are also able to do via the APIs. So yeah, quite powerful, but in the end, at least from a querying perspective, you're limited to what, in this case, the command line utility allows you to do. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, we have list accounts. Make notes to indoctrinate Antonio with V mode for the command. Yeah, maybe you need to teach me that, DJ. So yeah, so we have the sub accounts here. We can also do another query, for example. In this case, just get directory, right? So here, from a JSON, I'm querying a particular directory. I wanted to show me a hierarchy. There you go, and we have that directory. Only the sub accounts for that directory that I specified before, which is basically the exact same one that I was showing here, right? So this directory structure that I was showing here is basically what I'm retrieving here. Oh no, actually it's not the same. Directory GUID. Yeah, no, that's different. But if we retrieve this, we will basically see the same response here. Let me just change my environment, configure, and yeah, here. Save this, hit send, and you can see it's pretty much the same, right? So share resources, sub accounts, yeah, share resources here, and my sub accounts start to be listed here. Cool. So that's good. We know how we're able to interact with the BTP CLI, and in the end, what's important about it to know is that under the hood, this is actually using the same APIs. Okay, so yeah, hope you like the BTP CLI. Highly recommend checking it out. But then this talk is about how you can leverage your SQL skills in order to interact with that same data, right? So this is where something that I've been developing for the past couple of months. I've been working on it. It's basically a plugin for a tool that's called Steampipe. So for those of you who are not familiar with Steampipe, Steampipe is a pretty cool utility that allows you to query lots of your like internet accounts that you might have. All right. So Steampipe. So in this case, you can see that this little demo here is showing you, like, for example, like you're able to connect it to an AWS account, to an Azure account, to those sort of things, right? But and what it does is that it's using the concept of plugins. So plugins is what actually allows you to communicate with different services. In this case, you can see that there's lots of public cloud services here: AWS, Azure, the usual suspects there, GCP. But then, you know what? My favorite platform as a service is not included here. So BTP is not included here yet. So that's something that we're working on. I'm going to share details on that a bit later. But yeah, so when I found out about Steampipe, like first thing I thought, like, you know what? How can I query my BTP account? You know, and that that took me on a journey on developing a plugin for Steampipe. And that plugin, as you can see, for example, from this diagram that you see now, it's basically using something that's called foreign data wrappers, right? It's leveraging a functionality that PostgreSQL has. And in essence, what happens is that as a user, you end up interacting with the Steampipe command line interface that instantiates a Postgres database, and that Postgres database basically has ends up creating a foreign data wrapper for every plugin that you have installed in your command line interface. So in this case, it ends up exposing the BTP sort of tables via these foreign data wrappers. So this is based on a particular SQL standard, which is called something like SQL management for external data. something along those lines. Yeah, and in the end, the plugin, what it ends up doing is that it ends up exposing that API as tables in Postgres. So that way you're able to communicate without you knowing anything about the APIs with those APIs. So it's sort of magical, I would say, because I don't know if, for example, APIs can be a bit daunting, for example, for someone like with a database background who has never interacted with APIs, maybe like knowing all the ins and outs about security mechanisms and all that can be quite complex. And this sort of ends up abstracting a bit of that. So you don't have to interact with that level of the API. You can just use your SQL skills, to query that data. Right. So, but yeah, in the end, under the hood, you see, it's actually interacting with the core services API. So that's what everything revolves around here. And in our case, we're going to use the Steampipe command line interface to connect to this sort of Postgres database, and then we're going to interact with those with our BTP data. Okay. So let's go back to the command line interface. And in this case, what I have here, I have a service hub that's already running. So as you can see here, there's a service status. And that PG admin that I was showing you before is actually connecting to this Postgres database that you see here. So I already configured that obviously over there, and it's connected to this. But it also, Steampipe has a command line utility, right? So in this case, oh no, not that. You're able to check out, for example, the different plugins that you have available. So in this case, I have 4 plugins here, as you can see. So AWS, BTP. The BTP trial is actually communicating with the same BTP plugin, as you can see here, RSS. So this is just to give you an idea that in the end, for example, you are able to do stuff like this. So in this case, you see here, what I'm specifying here is like, you know what, I want to retrieve from that RSS feed, I want to retrieve the title, the link, and when it was published, for example. And this is what's so cool about it. Like, I'm actually interacting with a web property from SQL, right? There is an RSS plugin, obviously, and that RSS plugin is actually retrieving that data and processing that data so that it can show it to you in this table format. Okay, it's quite powerful. So, but well, this is not as much as I love RSS. This is not a talk about RSS. So let's actually inspect this BTP plugin that we have. So if I inspect that, you can see those different tables. That means that I'm able to interact with data for my BTP account directories, my BTP global account, my BTP sub account, entitlements, also data centers where my BTP account is available. And I can do a simple query, like for example, what I was doing before. Let's do a select asterisk from BTP dot, just like the global account. And you can see this is my global account information here. Okay, now I'll do the same, but for my BTP trial account now, right? Excellent. You see, so you can see how we're connecting to 2 accounts. So imagine that you have, I don't know, 3, 4 global accounts. It's just a matter of configuring a new connection, and then it's ready available to you. Either via this command line interface or via pgadmin. So let's go to pgadmin. I already prepared some scripts for this presentation, and we're just going to go through it so that you can see basically the power that you have here. Okay, so as before, I was showing you the global account. In this case, I'm just interacting. I need to connect again to this. So yeah, this is basically what I was showing you before in the CLI, right? This is my productive account, and it's just showing me data for that productive account, right? I'm retrieving all these fields, but then obviously it's like the power of SQL comes in when you start filtering stuff, right? Filtering stuff by things that you're not able to do in via the API itself. So in this case, like I can go ahead and just get all my sub accounts. So I'm just going to get all my sub accounts here. You see all the sub account data. But then you know what? I'm only interested in the ones that contain something in the display name, for example. This is something that you will not be able to do in via the API purely, but it's something that SQL allows you to do. Now, I don't know if you just noticed how fast the data was retrieved now, right? Now, what's happening under the hood is that Steampipe has a caching mechanism. So the first time you query an API, like it will take some time. Like it might take, I don't know, 5-10 seconds, depending on the API and depending if it has pagination, lots of things, right? But in the end, like it will take some time. Now, that being said, you're able to cache the results. All of this is configurable, obviously. So if you don't want to cache the results for a particular table, you don't have to. But it is likely that you might not need to know the real-time data for some tables. So in those cases, caching makes sense, right? So you're able to configure the cache. In this case, I think I configured it for every 5 minutes. So all the queries that I'm going to do with this particular table, then for the next 5 minutes, like it will be just using the data that's being cached. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. But it's also why it is so fast, which is great, right? So in this case, I was able to filter by display name. Now, when I was showing you before, like filtering by a directory, that's something that we can do also here, right? But in this case, we are going to query by the parent GUID. We specify a particular directory, and you can see that it basically tells me all the different sub accounts that are part of this directory, right? Yeah. So if I specify a different parent GUID, then it will bring me just for that particular directory. Now, this is something that I like very much because, for example, in the directories API, for example, directories. Let's go to the directories API. Let me go back here. Account services API reference, directory operations. So you can see here that I'm able to get one particular directory. I'm able to get its particular custom properties. I'm able to get its labels, its settings, but then I'm not able to get all the directories that are part of a global account. You know, not possible. That is not possible here. So, but in SQL, I'm able to do that. I know that from the data that we have in our response, I know that all directories have a parent type of project. So in SQL, by using the sub account table, you can see that I'm able to do this. I'm able to basically do a distinct of my parent GUID and parent type, and it will return me just that data. So in this case, these are my directories. So in a way, I'm sort of able to list all the directories. So if I had 10 directories, I will just get the 10 directories here, which is quite cool, I think. Obviously, like if you end up doing a join with this and the directory table, you will end up enriching that data, right? So that's quite cool. Now, apart from that, I'm also able to do stuff like this, which if you would end up using the normal APIs, you will need to build a pipeline, you know, to do this further processing, get the data, then group the data, then doing a sum there, for example. But in this case, I'm leveraging obviously SQL skills. And here I'm querying the sub account, I'm grouping by my region, and I'm counting. So I want to know basically in the different in the different regions, how many sub accounts do I have? In this case, I have 12 sub accounts in the EU10 region. So in the Frankfurt region, 11 in US 10, that would be Virginia. You know, and yeah, so a simple query, and you basically are doing some further processing with the data that's being returned from sub accounts. So you can see how, for example, this can be quite useful if you're doing reporting or if you have a dashboard where you want to show information for your BTP account. You no longer need to build a pipeline. You know, you're able to leverage this plugin, this command line utility, Steampipe, with this plugin, and you're able to interact with this data. Okay, no need to, well, I don't know, use a separate tool to retrieve the data and do some processing there, and yeah, which will be a bit more complex, in my opinion. Now, something that, for example, in the sub-account data, sub-accounts, it returns me a region, but that region doesn't tell me, for example, which infrastructure as a service provider what that sub-account is, although, like, for example, in the UI, you're able to see it. So in the UI, you have here the UI, it ended up loading after some time. You can see here, for example, the region, but here it doesn't actually tell us, well, it does tell us here who the provider is, AWS. But if you query just sub-account data, like, you will not see that data there, okay? So here in my sub-accounts, you can see that I have all this data. It tells me US 10, but it doesn't tell me that this, for example, is in Amazon Web Services, right? So just sub-account data doesn't give me that information. But then, using SQL, I'm able to join my sub-accounts with my entitlement data centers. You see the join that I have here, sub-account region with the DC region, and then I'm able to get infrastructure as a service provider data, right? So let's run this. And you can see how it's telling me now, yeah, this sub-account, for example, is part of this region, Europe, Frankfurt, and it's telling me here the provider, AWS, or Azure. Obviously, then I could do further filtering. Let's say that you only want to get for a particular infrastructure as a service provider. Yeah, you can do that filtering, right? So just your just your normal SQL skills here. So supports trial, not everything supports trial. So if I want to get, for example, what supports trial, then I can do a query by true for this particular field, right? Which is quite good. Now, I mentioned before about in the entitlements, how there were business categories. I show you, for example, that in entitlements, I have this business category, like, for example, data analytics. So I want to know all the services that are part of data analytics or AI or integration or all those sort of things. So in that case, for example, you can see that by querying the entitlement assignments table, you can get the different categories that we have for services. Okay, so then I can do very interesting queries by using that information. So for example, here I'm querying by the business category ID. This is actually accessing a JSON structure. So let's see the JSON structure first. So here, within my entitlements API, there's a nested JSON structure. There's actually two nested JSON structures. One is the service plans, and the other one is, I don't remember what the other one is now. I think within service plans, there's also data centers, yes. So, well, I can show it to you here. So yeah, service plans, and you can see here, for example, that within these service plans, I'll actually have data centers. So this tell me this particular service plan is available, for example, in the EU10 region. It's also available in the US 10 region. So obviously, not all BTP services are available in all regions. So that's something that, for example, we can use in our querying. So Santiago, to your question, does it allow the same operations as the APIs? No. Unfortunately not. So that's why I was highlighting before, like, why the APIs are quite powerful, because you're able to do inserts and updates and all that sort of stuff. Also via the BTP CLI, you're able to do creation of objects there. But then via SQL, at least with the Steampipe plugin, you're not able to do that, unfortunately. So it's just for querying purposes. So you would just be selecting data here. So just for information purposes, for reporting purposes, this is quite powerful. But then you will not be able, and that's unfortunate, because, like, yeah, I can see how you could end up doing like an insert of a directory and then an insert of a sub account and creating that sub account under that directory, for example. That would be very cool, but yeah, it's not the case. Okay, so back to nested structures. So we have nested structures here, and you can see the different service plans. That's pretty good. But then the power of here, why this is powerful is because you are then able to query down to that JSON structure. Okay, so here you can see here that I have a join, and what it's doing is that is joining the BTP entitlement assignments with the service plan data. Okay. And this service plan data, so for example, in this case, I'm only interested in integration services. So I'm going to query this, and boom, it retrieves me just all the services that are in my entire assignments for integration. So I could change that to AI, for example, and then boom, these are all the AI services that I have as entitlements. You can see that I don't have all services entitled. So for example, SAP AI Launchpad is not here, but SAP AI Core is available in my sub account. It tells me also, going to that service plan level, I can know like, okay, how many am I entitled? How many do I have remaining, right? That's something important. So for example, let's see, let me grab this application and just query by this. Yep. So let's query here. So you can see that for some services here, for example, the ABAP compute unit, I have 8. I'm entitled to 8, but I don't have any remaining, so I've been using all of them. And you can see for a lot of these services that maybe I have a large amount entitled, but I'm already using quite a few mobile services, AppGyver, all those sort of things, build apps, for example. Yeah, and this is quite nice, right? Like you've seen, and you can see, for example, how fast these queries are returning. Okay, and this is obviously using the cache that's available as part of the Steampipe CLI. It is likely that it has already refreshed the cache. I've configured it for 5 minutes, so but then it was so fast that we didn't even notice. But once it's cached, then for example, you can see that I did the query for AI, and it returned the data almost immediately. Now application development, and it's just basically using the data that's in memory here. So okay, so I mentioned, for example, data centers. So this is actually another nested structure within a nested structure, and I'm able to unwrap all that using this JSON-B array elements that's available as part of the PostgreSQL functionality to interact with JSON structures. This is available to me, and in the end, what it ends up doing is that it ends up grabbing that JSON structure and like unwrapping it for me and doing a join with this entitlement assignment. So here, for example, let's have a look here. I'm interested, in this case, I'm filtering by, you know what, I want to know all the AI services that are available in this particular data center, so CFU10, okay? That took a bit longer. You see how that query took a bit longer? So that is likely because it actually went and refreshed the data. If I run it again, instantly, right? I can change this. Let's change this. Integration. Right? F5. Yeah, you can see quite fast. So in this case, I'm actually showing, okay, this particular service, I have this service plan available, and obviously it's available in CF10. I want to get all the different data centers where it's available. Yeah, you can see here that this particular services are available in all these different data centers. Quite cool, huh? Yeah. So, okay, multiple BTP accounts. I show you at the beginning, for example, how I was able to query data for my productive account, my trial account. There are many companies out there that have multiple BTP global accounts. So by configuring the connection to them in the plugin, you're able to do queries like this, joining the data for a particular, in this case, I'm joining the data for my productive account with my trial account, and I want to know, for example, I'm grouping by regions. You can see here, for example, all the data consolidated. So you can imagine, for example, how, at least from an integration perspective, it will require, if we would like to do this live query against the APIs, you will need to call those APIs twice, then do the grouping, then join all this data to present it in this particular format, right? In this case, the plugin is doing all of that for us. So it's quite powerful, I would say. I really like this functionality because in the end, it's like, instead of building a pipeline, or instead of, for example, like another scenario is that maybe we would have a batch job that will be moving this data, for example, like the data from the APIs to another database. Let's say we have a HANA Cloud where we do all our reporting from, and then we would need to do a pipeline in order to move the data on a daily basis or every 6 hours. There's no need for that if we're using something like this, right? Now, this is cool because in the end, this is a Postgres database, right? So as I was showing you before, and apologies that I didn't show you this before, but let's just refresh this. You can see that here I'm connected to this Steampipe server. We have a Steampipe database, and within it, we have the concept of foreign data wrappers. And this is what's being leveraged, right? You can see that there are different schemas. In this case, for example, BTP. My BTP has the foreign tables, BTP accounts directory, BTP global account, sub account, and this is what I'm able to query. This is just using Postgres functionality, okay? And obviously RSS, I'll show you a bit of RSS. So this is, we only have these two tables, and I was querying, for example, this particular channel here. These are the columns that are available for that particular table, right? BTP trial, I'll show you BTP trial. So there's, it actually shows it to me as a separate schema, as you can see here, BTP trial. But in the end, under the hood, it's basically the same thing, right? So the foreign tables will be the same as the ones that I have for BTP. They are using the same plugin in the end. Okay, but this is quite cool because in the end, it's like you have the tables, you have your columns here, so you know exactly what you're creating. And for some of these tables, I think I have, so custom properties here. You'll be able to see that there is a nested structure. So in the entitlements assignment, there's some service plans, for example, this, if we look at the properties, you can see that this, the definition is a JSON-B data type. So it's a JSON structure. So that's why we need those sort of a JSON querying capabilities in order for you to, you can query that there. Cool. So Ham is saying you can see FTS templates in the Object Explorer. Yes, FTS templates, we have it here. Now I haven't explored this, but yeah, it seems to be empty here. So foreign tables is where all the data for that I've basically done in the plugin is available. Okay. Cool. So that's that. So you can see how we've seen how we are using SQL in order to interact with that BTP account data, right? Very powerful, if you ask me. So let's go back to basically what I was showing you in the presentation. So in the end, all of this is powered by the Steampipe plugin for BTP. It is a public repo, so obviously anyone can contribute to it. Your contributions are welcome. You can see it here. I've been updating it lately. So some of these things, I updated it yesterday, for example. And this is something that I've been working on because obviously I'm not happy that my favorite service is not available here. And I thought like, well, you know what, we can get BTP there. So I've been working lately closely with Steampipe guys there. So they've been helping me out to get the plugin in shape so that it's hub ready, so that it's available via the hub so the others can adopt it. So hopefully, I don't know, there will be some iterations on it, I'm sure, but eventually, hopefully, it will be available just as any other plugin that's available in the hub. But you can check it out. You can obviously install it now if you want. The instructions on how to do it are included in the repo so that you're able to run it locally. Okay, so yeah, you can get started with it now. And I just want to remind you that in the end, it's just SQL, right? So once you've done the minimal configuration for authentication, which in the end is just an access token in essence, then you have SQL that are available for you, so that you can query your BTP account data. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so if you're interested in contributing, your contributions are welcome. As I mentioned before, the plugin is at least the sort of preview of this is available there. Yeah, the normal disclaimer: this is not a product supported by SAP. This is a community-driven project, so just be aware of that. Go ahead and create an issue if you find any issues. Yeah, happy to help you out there, setting it up for you. And with that, I want to thank you for joining this session. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any questions. I've tried to answer the questions that are on chat. Yeah, I think I've answered this. Okay, download FTS template. So I would imagine that then the FTS templates are what end up. So everything related to, and this might answer your question. So everything related to foreign tables is actually done by the Steampipe plugin. So that's what Steampipe ends up doing under the hood. It ends up creating those tables on your behalf. So the way that this looks in the project itself, maybe you can see it now. Yeah. So here, this is the repository, right? And you can see here that I end up defining the different tables. So for my tables, I end up defining how you can filter, all that sort of stuff, all the different columns that are created. And once I end up running the make command for this, what it ends up Steampipe sort of ends up doing is that it ends up packaging this as a plugin, and that plugin is what basically does that mapping from these classes that I end up creating here. Well, it's not a class. This extending this plugin table structure to a foreign table. So I don't really define something like a template or anything like that. It's the Steampipe functionality that ends up converting this into a foreign table in Postgres. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, if you have any questions, it is very likely that you might know where to find me. I'm listed here my social media accounts, so feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions. And thank you for joining. Bye.